Hi, this is Pratima and welcome back to Planet Physiology. In the last two videos, we explored physiologic anatomy of cerebellum and its connections. And today, we are about to uncover what the cerebellum actually does. Whether you are an undergraduate or a postgraduate student, this session will make the cerebellar functions crystal clear. Before we begin, I recommend quickly brushing up on the functional divisions and connections of cerebellum. The links of those videos are provided in the description below. You know, cerebellum was once thought to be just a silent region of the brain and later was discovered to play important roles in movements. But the modern research tells a very different story. Along with its motor functions, cerebellum is also involved in attention, language, emotional regulation, and much more. But today's focus will be on its motor functions. Functionally, cerebellum is divided into three regions: vestibulocerebellum, spinocerebellum, and cerebrocerebellum. The vestibulocerebellum maintains equilibrium and controls eye movements. Spinocerebellum regulates muscle tone, posture, and various activities. And cerebrocerebellum plans and times the complex movements. Think of a cerebellum as the brain's internal quality control officer, ensuring that all your actions are smooth, precise, and accurate. So let's explore these functions in detail. Starting with vestibulocerebellum, it is your balance expert, especially during rapid, unpredictable movements. For example, watch how this acrobat balances on the moving ring. Imagine the incredible calculations happening inside the brain. Just like that, our cerebellum is constantly calculating the body's next position using kinesthetic signals from the periphery and the signals from the vestibular apparatus. It sends out anticipatory corrective signals before we even know we need them to keep us balanced. Even when standing still, the cerebellum is at work, subtly adjusting muscle tone to keep us balanced. Without it, maintaining posture would be impossible, leading to swaying and instability. Patients may sway while standing or develop wide-based, unsteady gait, often called drunken gait or waddling gait, one of the classical features of the cerebellar lesions. The next function of vestibulocerebellum is its role in eyeball movements. Connections of vestibulocerebellum with 3rd, 4th and 6th cranial nerve nuclei via medial longitudinal fasciculus regulate eyeball movements. These connections are also responsible for vestibulo-ocular reflex, which helps to fix the gaze on the object of interest during head movement. Now moving on to the spinocerebellum, the master of muscle control. The vermis governs the axial and proximal muscles, helping us to maintain posture, while paravermal region controls the fine movements of our distal limbs, like writing or playing the musical instrument. From the first step you take to the notes you play on the piano, the spinocerebellum fine-tunes your voluntary movements. It does not just send go signals, it fine-tunes every aspect of the movement: the onset, rate, force, range, direction, and even the termination. But how does it do all this so precisely? Here's the magic. The cerebellum receives copy of motor plan through the pontocerebellar fibers. These fibers excite both deep cerebellar nuclei as well as the granule cells. Initial stimulation of deep cerebellar nuclei send turn-on signals to the agonist muscles via corticospinal and rubrospinal tracts and promote strong, powerful contractions. Simultaneously, turn-off signals are also sent to the antagonist muscles to prevent the resistance. This results in smooth initiation and progression of the movement. Signals via granule and the Purkinje cells lead to delayed inhibition of same deep cerebellar nuclei. This time delay circuit provides turn-off signals to agonist and turn-on signals to antagonist, precisely terminating the movement at the intended point. Let's understand this function with simple example. Imagine you are picking up a kettle to pour tea in a cup. Even though the motor cortex initiates this planned action, the cerebellum plays a crucial role in perfecting it. It judges the distance between your hand and the kettle, estimates the weight of kettle, and accordingly sends turn-on signals to the appropriate muscle groups to reach the kettle. Once the hand reaches the kettle, cerebellum then sends turn-off signals to the reaching muscles to stop the forward movement. Now the turn-on signals are sent to the next muscle group to grasp the kettle, to lift it up and reach the cup. All these are in the sequential order. Simultaneously, it sends turn-off signals to the antagonist muscles, allowing smooth movements. This is just a small example. In fact, you can break down any movement like this to appreciate cerebellum's critical role. Now you might think, this is a very simple action, something that anyone can do effortlessly. But pause for a moment and imagine a 1 or 2-year-old baby trying to perform the similar action, where cerebellar control is not precise. Yes, it would likely end in a mess. Why does this happen? A simple answer is motor learning. Our cerebellum is constantly monitoring our actions. Whenever there is mismatch between the intended movement and the actual performance, cerebellum works to correct it in the next time when the same movement is performed. This important corrective process is known as comparator function of cerebellum. Let's dive a little deeper into how this works. The cerebellum receives a copy of intended plan of movement from pontocerebellar fibers as well as from the red nucleus. It also receives copy of motor signals arrived at the anterior horn cells and feedback from the muscles regarding the actual movement performed via spinocerebellar tracts. Now, the cerebellum compares these inputs and checks for any discrepancies. If the difference is found, it adjusts the timing of turn-on and turn-off signals to fine-tune the movement. In this comparator function, the inferior olivary nucleus also plays a key role. It also receives both kinesthetic signals from the periphery as well as the copy of motor instructions from the cortex. It also compares them and adjusts the signals in the climbing fibers to modulate Purkinje cell output. These fine adjustments continue until there is zero error between the intended plan and the actual action. The process is known as cerebellar learning or the motor learning. To reinforce this concept, just think about learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you needed someone to hold and balance you. Over time, with practice and your cerebellum's continuous adjustments, you learn to ride smoothly. With even more practice, you could perform stunts or ride without using your hands. This is cerebellar motor learning in action, and it applies to each and every motor skill we master. Okay, in addition to adjusting turn-on and turn-off signals, the cerebellum also fine-tunes the process called as alpha-gamma coactivation. Whenever a voluntary movement is initiated, cerebellum ensures that not only the muscle fibers contract, but the muscle spindles also stay sensitive throughout the action. This is achieved through its regulation of vestibulospinal tract, which influences alpha motor neurons, and reticulospinal tracts, which control gamma motor neurons. This precise alpha-gamma coactivation is essential for maintaining muscle tone and proprioceptive feedback even during active muscle contractions. Without this fine-tuning by the cerebellum, our movements would become uncoordinated and unstable. For example, when you walk while balancing a tray full of cups, your cerebellum's fine-tuning of alpha-gamma coactivation helps you to adjust subtle shifts in the muscle tone, keeping both your body and the tray steady even while walking. Now let's move on to another important aspect of cerebellar function, the damping function. As you must have observed, When a movement is performed, it stops precisely at the intended point without overshooting. This accuracy is possible because of cerebellum's damping function. Most of the movements are naturally pendular, meaning once the movement begins, momentum builds up, and it must be precisely counteracted to stop the movement at the correct spot. The cerebellum calculates this in real time and sends appropriate signals to ensure the movement stops exactly where it should. To visualize this better, let's see what happens to this movement without damping function of cerebellum. The motor cortex still sends the commands to reach the kettle. However, without proper cerebellar control, the hand overshoots, moving beyond the kettle. Recognizing this error, conscious centers initiate a corrective movement in a reverse direction. But again, the hand overshoots, this time in opposite direction. This cycle of overshooting and correcting continues, with the amplitude gradually reducing until the hand reaches the intended target. This characteristic to and fro movement while trying to reach the target is called intention tremor or action tremor. Note that the word is intention tremor and not the intentional tremor, a common mistake many students make. Please remember it is intention tremor. Thus, because of damping function, cerebellum prevents overshoot and intention tremors, helping us to move smoothly without any unintended oscillations. Now moving on to the next important function of the spinocerebellum, control of ballistic movements. Ballistic movements are rapid, pre-programmed actions involving multiple joints such as finger movements while typing or quick saccadic eye movements during reading. These actions occur so rapidly that real-time feedback corrections by the cerebellum are not possible. Hence, the entire movement is carefully pre-planned and initiated with correct force, directed to the precise distance, and then terminated exactly at the intended point. This type of pre-planned rapid movement is what we call ballistic movement. In absence of proper cerebellar control, ballistic movements become impaired. They are slow to initiate, lack initial surge of force, develop weak contractions, and slow to terminate, and often overshoot the target. Thus, the smooth automatism of ballistic actions is lost when the cerebellum is damaged. Now, the last function of spinocerebellum, regulation of muscle tone. This is achieved through cerebellar's influence over various descending motor pathways. In humans, the cerebellum exerts facilitatory effect on the stretch reflex, thereby maintaining optimal muscle tone. When the cerebellum is damaged, this facilitatory control is lost, resulting in hypotonia, again a characteristic clinical feature of cerebellar lesions in humans. However, it is important to note that in animals, the cerebellar connections with the brainstem are highly complex, and due to these intricate interactions, cerebellar lesions in animals often lead to spasticity or rigidity rather than hypotonia. Now let's explore functions of cerebrocerebellum. The largest and the most lateral part of the cerebellum, formed primarily by lateral hemispheres. The cerebrocerebellum plays a vital role in planning complex voluntary movements, sequencing multiple actions smoothly, and accurately timing the movements. Most voluntary actions are not a single event, but a carefully coordinated series of steps. Cerebrocerebellum ensures that each step of the movement happens in correct order at the right time without unnecessary delays or overlaps. So let's see how. The plan of sequential movement begins in premotor and somatosensory cortex and transmitted to the lateral zone of cerebellar hemisphere via pontocerebellar fibers. Here, the cerebellum estimates the required direction, the necessary force, the correct sequence, and precise timing of activation and inhibition of various muscle groups. This integrated information is then sent back to the motor cortex via thalamus and basal ganglia, enabling the execution of smooth and harmoniously coordinated movement. You can easily appreciate this function with day-to-day activities like writing or buttoning the shirt. Before your hand even moves, the cerebellum has already calculated which muscles need to contract, in what sequence, with how much force, and exactly when to start and stop each movement. This role of cerebellum is not limited only to hand or the leg movements. It also extends to the respiratory, phonatory, and articulatory muscles, which must work together smoothly and precisely during speech. Without proper cerebellar planning, handwriting becomes slow, irregular, and usual smooth sequence breaks down into fragmented, awkward, and step-by-step motions, a phenomenon known as decomposition of movement. It also results in scanning speech where syllables become broken, irregular, and lose their normal rhythm. Another important function of cerebellum is extramotor predictive function. You will find this function only in the international editions of Guyton's textbook of medical physiology. Based on rapidly changing visual or auditory cues, cerebellum predicts how fast a person is approaching an object and accordingly times the movement perfectly. For example, watch this hurdle race. The athlete exactly knows when he will reach the hurdle and times the jump precisely. We can also apply this function in reverse. While crossing a busy road, cerebellum helps to estimate how quickly the vehicles are approaching and whether there is enough time to safely cross. Thus, cerebellum acts as master coordinator, ensuring that the complex voluntary movements are carefully planned, properly sequenced, and perfectly timed. Without its contribution, our day-to-day activities would lose their smoothness, precision, and efficiency. Here is another example to indicate the role of cerebellum in precise movement. This perfect carom shot clearly demands the exact judgment of the direction, force, and precise timing of the muscle contractions. Let's now quickly summarize the important functions of the cerebellum. Vestibular cerebellum maintains equilibrium and coordinates eye movement. Spinocerebellum ensures smooth, coordinated, and precise movements thanks to its motor learning capability through comparator function, which fine-tunes turn on and turn off signals to perfect the action. Alpha-gamma coactivation maintains required muscle tone throughout the action. It has facilitatory control over the stretch reflex and hence the muscle tone. Spinocerebellum also damps the pendular movement, helping to stop precisely at the intended point to prevent overshoot and intention tremors. It also controls ballistic movements, which are rapid, pre-planned sequences requiring no feedback correction. Cerebellum is primarily concerned with planning and timing of complex sequential voluntary activities and also the extramotor predictive functions. Additionally, the current research suggests that cerebellum is involved in processing of language, thoughts, and emotions, highlighting its far-reaching influence beyond motor control. So that's all about functions of cerebellum. In the next part, we shall study details about clinical abnormalities associated with cerebellar lesions. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Till then, stay tuned. If you enjoy my presentations, press the like button and share it with your friends. For more such videos, subscribe my channel and click the bell icon. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.